A very strong eastern Pacific high starts to build in, and this is going to bring us some very, very warm temperatures. Now, if you open your weather app, like a lot of us do, you might have noticed something a little disconcerting for next Saturday, to put it mildly, 119 degrees. This is unrealistic. This is a single model. This is not a synthesis. This is not someone compiling all the data and saying, it's going to be 119. This is one model run, and that can be flawed. Is it going to be that hot? It's not going to be that hot, but it will be quite a bit above average and still hot. We're talking maybe 110 degrees, maybe a little bit cooler than that, but generally Tuesday through Friday, temperatures 105 to 112. That'll be 15 degrees or more above average. 110 degrees on July 5th, 113 degrees July 6th, and then we have to skip a few days, 113 degrees July 11th and 111 degrees July 12th. So for the first time on record in Sacramento, we've had 4 days in a single year with high temperatures of at least 110 degrees. That's the most ever, with records dating back to 1877. The previous most was 3 days in a single year, and we did that 4 times, most recently 2021 and 2022. Take a look at this graph here. These are all of the years that we've had a high temperature, at least one day with a high temperature of 110 degrees. This was virtually unheard of in the post-Civil War Reconstruction era. If you lived in Sacramento in the mid to late 1800s, you may literally have only seen 110 degrees once or twice in your lifetime. Maybe you've seen it twice a decade if you lived a little bit later on than that. But since 1950, look at how often we're seeing 110 degrees. Since 1990, we're seeing, on average, 110 degrees about once every 3 years, whereas prior to 1950, when we go all the way back to the 1800s and early 1900s, we were averaging 110 degrees less than once a decade. So climate change is making this type of heat that we have seen over the last 2 weeks much, much more common. The average last 100-degree day is September 15th. So basically the middle of September. We're a couple of weeks or so away from that. The latest last 100-degree day, though, was October 10th. This is since 1990. That's October 10th. So we can see those triple digits really all the way into early October, just depending on the weather pattern. So even though climatologically speaking, we typically see our last triple-digit day in the middle of September, it's not necessarily the case. But we do know that cooler days are not that far away. We're just 24 days from the first day of fall, 60-plus days from Halloween.
Don't get on the roads unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah, that's right. And that would still be the advice today, especially particularly in the high country, is just stay off the roads. Be where you are, stay hunkered down. Not a threat here, but bad things happen when people get curious and try to go out in blizzard conditions, you know? So just wait the storm out. If you're in the valley, you want to go out play in the snow, still not the day to do that. There will be the opportunity. Today and tomorrow are not the opportunities you're looking for. With this heaviest rain ahead of the cold front as it pushes across the valley, notice the snow. We're going to be at and above pass level to start, so not much snow in the morning hours. It's going to take a minute for that cold air, which is on this side of the cold front, to get into the Sierra. So we've got slightly warmer air ahead of it. That moisture is typically a little warmer as well. But once we see that frontal passage happen in the valley and that cold air starts to trickle up into the high country, that's when we're going to see that snow really start to pick up. So in the afternoon, mid to late afternoons, when that snow is really going to start, and it's going to start coming down pretty quick. It'll be just rain, then it'll start to transition to snow, and then that snow level is going to go from pass level down to about 4,500, 5,000 feet this afternoon, and it could come down at an inch or 2 per hour. And unfortunately, it's always the weekend, right? It never seems like we have nice weather on the weekends. We always have nice weather during the work week, unfortunately. This is for Saturday, the forecast. Like I said, that high temperature of 55 is not for the afternoon. We likely hit 55 degrees at midnight. So as soon as the clock hits midnight, the temperature likely to be about 55 degrees, and that'll be as warm as it gets all day on Saturday, because that cold front comes through during the morning hours, which means we're going to see temperatures dropping through the morning and through the afternoon. So by the time we get to 8 o'clock, 51 degrees with some rain. Noon, 48 degrees. 4 o'clock, 49. 8 o'clock on Saturday, 48 degrees. So realistically, if you're going to be out and about tomorrow afternoon, you're going to have some scattered showers to contend with, but also temperatures are going to be in those mid to upper 40s across the valley. So it's a little misleading when we say the high temperature tomorrow will be 55, because really what we're going to experience is going to be 40-degree weather, not 50-degree weather, because we're going to be, for the most part, asleep when it's 55 in the warmest part of the day. Kind of weird where it happens overnight, but that happens sometimes. It'll be one of those days tomorrow where the temperature drops as the day goes on. So if you have plans on Saturday, don't plan on it being 55. Plan on it being 47 to about 50 degrees around the valleys. Definitely not conditions you want to be out driving. And I-80 looks quiet because it is. It is closed right now. Interstate 80 has been closed for a while now and continues to be. We've had a lot of spinouts. We've had jackknife trucks and semis, just dangerous conditions. And we were warning about this, right? We were saying Caltrans was going to have trouble keeping up with the snow that was falling, especially along I-80. That we finally reached that point. We got there and they just said, you know what, it's done, it's closed. We're going to wait until we have a better opportunity to clear those roads. So I-80, not even an option. You can't go up there. To recap, heat starts to build in for the end of the work week, headed into the weekend. We lose a little bit of temperature Saturday and Sunday. That heat risk drops back into the minor to moderate category. But then for Monday and Tuesday, we're not going to see a lot of delta breeze. We're going to see some of that major heat risk, especially in the low to middle elevations, pockets of extreme heat risk in the mid elevations, as well as it's not really going to cool off at night. Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night, where we're going to see low temperatures likely near 80 degrees across much of the foothills, similar to what we saw with the previous heat wave. But the good news is it does not last as long as the previous heat wave. It's just 3, maybe 4 days, as opposed to literally 2 weeks of this type of heat. That high pressure finally starting to move out a little bit. That's going to bring some of those rain chances with it now into Nevada as opposed to the Sierra. This weak low pressure system up off the northwest coast not doing anything for us other than some cloud cover that we've got for a couple of hours. Tomorrow is going to be about 2 to 4 degrees cooler for many valley locations. So again, that cool down is there, but it's just a couple degrees drop here and there. 90s and low hundreds today and tomorrow, really. By Monday, mainly 90s. And then by the middle of this coming week, still looking at this low pressure system to kind of drop down to the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Cooler, some clouds, north wind potential as well. There is still some differences in the models, though. So what we can say about the system is it's likely to bring us some cooler temps. How cool, though? Well, some models say as low as the low 80s. Others say upper 80s and some low 90s. What we definitely can say, it's not a widespread rain event, but we could see some light Sierra showers, and we definitely have a chance for north winds, but that's going to be heavily dependent on the track of the storm. Now, if you're hoping for a fall-like system with some rain, again, this system's not it. In fact, our average first day with at least 1/10 of an inch of rain in Sacramento is October 7th. So we're still about a month away. Especially if you go up in elevation, you go up to the Sierra, away from the lights, you go up to Siskiyou, up to Shasta, away from the lights again, you might be able to capture it on camera. You wouldn't really see it with your naked eye, but because the camera can let in a lot more light than what your eyes can, there's that chance that it would look different, more than just a dark sky. So let's break it down here. We do have a G4 solar storm. That's actually a pretty strong, fairly strong solar storm. It will produce a lot of aurora. There will be an active aurora across parts of Montana, the upper, as we saw, the upper part of the United States, parts of Canada. But here in Northern California, can I see it with my eyes? The answer is going to be mostly no, certainly not in town. Again, you go up somewhere dark, somewhere like the Sierra, somewhere like Siskiyou County, somewhere like Shasta. Again, you got to get away from the city lights. It's got to be dark. If you get away from town, you don't have to worry about city lights. You look to the north horizon tonight, you might see a dim glow, something like city lights off in the distance. It would not be a spectacular shot like what we see in the background here, where the whole night sky is green and blue and yellow and purple. It would not look anything like that. It would look like a very, very dim kind of like looking at city lights off in the distance. That's what you might potentially, possibly be able to see under just exceptional conditions here in Northern California. But like I said, if you have a camera, it is a little bit of a different story. So can I see it with a camera? Possibly. The weather conditions will be good. It really just depends on how the solar storm plays out, right? How it interacts with our atmosphere. Is it coming in as strong as expected? Is it a little weaker? That's why that answer is possibly. But it'll be especially true for professional photographers if you can see it with a camera. Yes. The long exposure camera is what you need. You need a tripod to keep it steady, and you want to keep away from lights. You still got to go away from the city lights, so you still got to go somewhere where it's dark, away from Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto, Oakland, San Francisco. You can't be anywhere near that. South Lake Tahoe, Truckee, you got to be out in the dark if you want a chance of seeing it even with a camera. Will we see any impacts out of it beyond just an aurora? Nothing major that operators aren't prepared for. A little bit. I mean, temperatures are trending in the right direction through the weekend, but we're still going to have very low relative humidity, especially in the afternoons, poor overnight recovery,
Right.
and we're still going to have the breeze, which in the valley is nice because it helps to cool us down, but in the high country, it just leads to more fire danger. So let's break these fire factors down a little bit more as we take a look at one of the Alert California wildfire cameras. This is looking at the Crozier fire. So well, the first factor is it's still hot out there. Temperatures are in the 90s at the mid elevation. So in the area near the Crozier fire, even 3,000 feet in the air, again, afternoon temps are in the 90s, typically low to middle 90s, but some of these hotter days, it could be closer to 98 or so. It's also very dry. The relative humidity in the afternoons, 10 to 20%, again, in the low to mid elevations. Overnight, we don't get the rebound that we see in the valley where that delta breeze comes in. It brings in a lot of that ocean cooled air. That's very moist air as well. Relative humidity jumps back 80 to 90%, if not more. That does not happen when you get a few thousand feet in elevation because the delta breeze is a very, very shallow layer of air, so that moist air can't ride up the side of the mountain and help to give better firefighting conditions. So that overnight recovery, again, not great, 20 to 30%. The other factor is it's breezy. During the afternoon and evenings, we see these westerly winds develop. That's a delta breeze in the valley, but the overall weather patterns also conducive to these westerly winds at the elevations. So even 3,000 feet in the air, we're still seeing these westerly winds. They're just not moist winds. They're not wet winds that are helping to bring some of that relative humidity back in.